Have you ever wondered how to break into the inner circles of high-level individuals and build a powerful network? Some are born into it, some are masters of their craft, while others pay tens and thousands of dollars just to be a part of these exclusive networks. But if you were broke like me, you needed to be strategic in how you got a seat at the table. Here are my 5 key principles to networking with high-level people with no experience at all. The first key principle to networking is that we have to lead with intention. Now, I really wanted to get into commercial real estate, but I didn't know anybody in the industry and I had no experience. I knew that I needed to network because of the old saying, your network is your net worth. But one problem when I started my journey was that it was COVID and I could only meet people online. So what I would do is I would go to all these virtual real estate meetups all across the country. And since it was virtual, I could hop into a meetup in Kansas City or Minneapolis. And when I would hop onto the call, I would see how many people I could get a one-on-one follow-up conversation with. And so I would open up the floor asking, would love to hop on a call to learn more about you and your goals. Boom, leading with intention. So I would get on the call and start to learn about them. And I would always end the conversation by saying, how can I add value to you? And I realized that this was the worst question I could ever ask. And I'm guilty for saying it probably for the first 20 people I met online. And I've talked about this in a previous video, but I absolutely hate this question because it comes from a good place, but it comes off as insincere because now you're letting the person you're trying to network with do all the work for you to think for them and how you can add value to them. And imagine if we applied this to our dating life when trying to find a partner. You go on a first date and you ask, how can I add value to you? If I was the person on the other side, I would have been like, what the fuck? So leading with intention needs to come off natural. It needs to come from a place where we're looking to understand the problems or challenges first before we can actually solve them and add value. We can't just throw solutions at a wall and hope it sticks. And most likely, you're not going to figure out how to add value to them after the first interaction or even the second interaction. So if you're sitting there tempting to ask the infamous question, how can I add value to you? It just means that you don't know the person well enough to understand what value they need. We got to gain an understanding for people before we can have an exchange of value in order to build the relationship. And the reason there has to be an exchange in value is actually a lot more psychological than you think, which then leads me to my next principle. Leverage the rule of reciprocation. The rule of reciprocation comes from one of my favorite books of all time, Influence: The Psychology of Persuasion, written by the famous social psychologist, Dr. Robert Cialdini. This rule of reciprocation is a part of our human nature and plays a significant role in shaping our social interactions and relationships. The rule of reciprocation is the human tendency to feel obligated to return the favor or repay others when they have done something for us. The rule suggests that when someone does something for us or provides us with something of value, we often feel a sense of indebtedness and a desire to reciprocate. Have you ever been in that moment where someone gives you a birthday gift and then realize that you didn't get that person a birthday gift back? That feeling feels like shit, but you feel the need to get them a gift. There definitely could be the possibility where someone doesn't follow the rule of reciprocation, and that's okay. It's just important to be aware of it, because at the end of the day, we can't control the results if someone reciprocates or not, but just understand that this rule can be powerful. And because it can be so powerful, we have to use this rule ethically. We can't make somebody be partners with us or work with us because everyone has a choice in what they decide to do. We can't control the results, but we can control our own actions and control what we bring to the table. It starts with ourselves. And by initiating a positive action, a positive attitude, or providing value to others first, we can increase the likelihood of receiving a favorable response from the other person. And with our understanding of the rule of reciprocation, we need to use this to our advantage to expand our network, but we need to do this without expecting anything in return. Which brings me to my next principle, principle number 3. High quality networking focuses on building goodwill and relationship equity. Building relationship equity forms the foundation of long-term and mutually beneficial connections. It refers to the value, trust, and goodwill that is accumulated through a number of different scenarios, whether that be positive interactions, consistent engagements, and the establishment of strong rapport. For my full-time job, I do investor relations for a commercial real estate firm, partnering with investors to take down large commercial real estate projects. For the past year and a half, I was able to raise $15 million in equity from retail investors, which is the opposite of those larger institutions or hedge funds or family offices. These are your doctors, engineers, lawyers. So I've been able to talk to numerous people and establish these relationships. Now, the thing is, I'm not sucking up to them, telling them how great they are, or even hard selling, telling them how good of an opportunity this is. There's actually a framework to this. In investor relations, we go through this process referred to as the know, like, and trust triangle. First, people need to know you, but once they know you, you gain the opportunity for them to like and eventually trust you. Trust is our end game. That's our goal, especially for the type of real estate deals that I do. These are projected 5-year holding periods where you won't be able to cash out. So you damn well need to be sure that there's a mutually trusting relationship. And when I hop on these calls and build these relationships with these investors, the actionable steps to building relationship equity are surprisingly simple, yet for some reason extremely difficult to execute. And the reason it's difficult is because people are looking for that immediate result or immediate gratification. Some people gain trust early on, while others, even now they still haven't partnered with us, are still building that relationship. There's surprisingly simple, actionable steps that aren't these grandiose acts of service where I'm buying expensive gifts, because it just comes down to being authentic, being an active listener, being a resource or of support, staying consistent in your follow-ups, and then showing appreciation. People can sense right off the bat what your intentions are. It's human nature. Going back to this whole date, think about the time when you're on a date and all they want to do is hook up with you. Don't let them objectify you. You're not an object, but you remember the person that is genuinely curious about you. I take this approach when I meet prospective investors. I make sure to stay genuine, learn about them by asking insightful questions, show my appreciation for them taking time out of their day to talk to me, and continue the conversation by following up to see how they're doing as a person, not just a transaction. I actually have this one person who I've known for about a year and a half, and he's going to be investing with us soon. But a lot of our conversations leading up to that was learning about him and his business. I learned about his relationship with his girlfriend, that he loved to write, that he's a published author. I learned that he wanted to get as much passive income as he could so he can spend more time writing and spending time with his loved ones. I even bought his book to support him and understand that you're in the long game. In order to build goodwill and build that relationship, we need to go back to the beginning of the interaction, which brings me to my next principle. The fourth key principle is that first impressions is your 20/80. This refers to Pareto's principle, which states that roughly 80% of your results comes from 20% of your actions, implying that a small portion of input leads to the majority of your results. If you don't make a good impression, it'll take time to bounce back from that. You might not even be able to recover and ever build a relationship with that person, because first impressions have a huge influence in people's decision to work or partner up with you. Now, this isn't going to be some bullshit principle where you need to have a firm handshake, stand up straight, and look them directly in the eyes when you meet someone. There isn't a formula that creates the best first impressions, but the best first impressions start from within. So manufacture behavior that you yourself is impressed by. Yeah, sure, people might remember what you wear or if your breath stinks, but what's truly key to making a great first impression is thinking through the approach of how did that person feel after that interaction? How do they experience you? Did you make them feel comfortable? Did you make them feel stressed? Did you make them feel understood? Ask yourself these questions and apply your own answers to how you communicate with others. For me, one of the key ways I want to make a first impression is I want to be someone that actively listens, where they feel like I'm the only person in the world talking to them at that given moment. I want them to leave the conversation feeling good. Granted, we can't control how people perceive us, but we want the odds to be in our favor. We just want our first impressions to be good enough to have another conversation. Work on how you want people to experience you. And so after going through the process of getting them to like you and trust you comes the most important principle of networking that will separate you from the pack. Principle number 5, the value proposition. The value proposition needs to be so good that they cannot ignore you. And keep in mind, the value you provide might not be reciprocated right away, but if the value is good enough and consistently good enough, you'll turn from someone that's just trying to network to, I want to work and help this person level up. And so here are my 3 favorite ways to create a value proposition to become memorable. You can either trade your skills, be the connector, or create a platform. Number 1, trade your skills. When you trade your skills to create a solution for them, the solution needs to be already done. Since I didn't have skills, I can only edit and create social media clips. So I would create social media clips of the commercial real estate investors and hand to them and say, hey, I created this snippet and graphic for you. Some would respond, some wouldn't, but the people that did respond was able to expand my network because I was constantly sending them clips and continuing to have other excuses to have a conversation. I didn't message people saying, hey, I made a snippet for you, respond back if you want to see it, because I knew that people would see right through it. And I knew that I didn't make them shit yet. So whatever skill set that might be, use it to your advantage and get in the room by working for free and then say it was no big deal. Because the idea is you want to give off the perception that you are a professional, you mean business, and most importantly, can execute on what you say you're going to do. If you're underwriting and analyzing commercial real estate deals and you want to meet other people that can run the deal, underwrite the deal from start to finish and then present it to them. Stop asking for permission to do shit and just do it, because people will remember the people that provided them the solution, not the person that'll ask them to provide an answer. You don't have the leverage, they do. The second way you can add value to someone is simply by being the connector, introducing someone from your network to their network. That person needs to be, of course, actual value to where it would be beneficial for them to connect. And starting out, I would do this all the time with meeting with other commercial real estate investors since I had nothing else to offer. I mean, I would ask people what markets they're invested in and then go back to my network, introduce them to someone that's also invested in that market or interested in investing in that market, and then connect them. But here's the key. I wouldn't just give them their contact information in hoping they would reach out, because to be quite honest, more often than not, they won't reach out to that person. So what I would do is I would put the 2 of them in a group text or a group email saying exactly this. Hey, blank, I want to virtually introduce you to my friend blank. He's interested in investing here and you're also interested in investing there. I thought you 2 would have a great conversation. I'll let you 2 take it from here, and boom. People love to be referred over to someone else because it makes them feel good. They're like, damn, I'm good enough to have someone else introduce themselves to me. And they remember who did that because you inserted yourself in the situation. So even if you have no experience at all, you can still add value by referring them over to someone that can help in their situation. The last way to add value is actually my most effective and creative way that combines the first 2, all packaged into one, and that's creating a platform to invite others on. My favorite platform is starting a podcast. After I lost my job due to COVID, I knew that I needed to expand my network and I wanted to get a coach, but the only problem though was that no one would want to talk to me for an hour of their time if I just asked them. But if I recorded our conversation and gave them social media graphics or video snippets, people were down to talk to me. It was just a nice excuse to have a conversation with someone. And so the podcast let me give them free marketing material. It helped me establish social proof because now people are seeing me alongside these other industry professionals, and it gave me the opportunity to showcase my professionalism from start to finish by focusing on the experience that the guest had with me. Because the real reason I was memorable is because of how I made them feel from start to finish. Every detail matters, from how they booked the podcast with me, how prompt I was, the research I had behind their biography, asking them insightful questions no one's asked them, and how I communicated with them after we recorded. There's so many opportunities to have multiple touch points with the guests, and then you'll start to have a network full of guests that you've built some relationship equity. And so by doing this, I was able to bypass a $20,000 coaching program by just networking with the students. Eventually, all the students thought I was a student. I got to drive Ferraris with investors and even connect two of my guests who happened to do a deal together. And so now every time they see me, they know that I'm well connected in the industry because of the people that I'm aligned with. So if you're looking to see all the resources, equipment, format, and structure to how I built my podcast to be memorable, I've put a link into the description to my entire playbook on how to leverage a podcast to get a seat at the table and create your own stage for free. So at the end of the day, you just have to go out, get started, stay consistent, connect with people that are smarter, better, wealthier than you. And remember, if you're the best in the room, then you're in the wrong room. Thanks, y'all.